Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today I have a couple of more bizarre stories featuring classic cryptids that we've talked about before, folks. One encounter with a dogman or a werewolf, and another, the Mothman makes a return in today's video. But first we'll read this article. Unnaturally shiny grayish silver werewolf encountered near Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. In March 2013, two witnesses driving near Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania came face to face with a towering wolf-like humanoid that combined both human and canine traits. The creature, described as lean and powerful, was surrounded by a strange silvery aura, leaving both men convinced that they had seen something far beyond a normal animal, something supernatural. That is as great as ever as I've heard to the opening of an article. Let's read their full account now. I am currently a resident of Altoona, Pennsylvania, and I'm writing to report a strange encounter I experienced with a friend in the early morning hours of Sunday, March 17th, 2013. This incident is now over 2 years old. I chose not to report this event earlier, due to a reluctance to expose myself and my family and friends to public scrutiny. However, in light of the recent increase in similar sightings in central Pennsylvania, I have decided to share my experience, hoping it may contribute to current research. I want to maintain the anonymity of myself and anyone mentioned at this time. Reporting a sighting of Bigfoot or even a UFO is one thing, but this experience is something different. On the evening in question, my friend and I were returning from a job I had done in Williamsburg, Pennsylvania. My friend was driving, and to the best of my recollection, the incident occurred between 1:30 a.m. and 2 o'clock a.m. on March 17th. We were traveling southwest on Route 22 through what is locally known as Town, a rural suburb of Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. As we rounded a curve in the road, our attention was drawn to our left. On the opposite side of the road, standing or squatting in a clearing just a few feet off the road, was some creature. My friend wasn't driving very fast and slowed a bit as we approached. Our initial view of the creature was from its dorsal side as it was facing away from us. It came into profile as we passed, showing its right side to us. The creature was covered in fur that looked grayish silver. It seemed unnaturally shiny, which could have been a reflection from the headlights or the moon. It had pointy, erect canine ears that were somewhat laid back on its head. The head was large and had a distinctly wolf-like overall appearance. Its muzzle also resembled that of a wolf, though the snout was not particularly elongated and had canine-like teeth. To the best of my recollection, the eyes appeared amber, but may have had a reddish glow or reflection. It had a wolf-like tail and turned its head to watch us as we passed, clearly aware of our presence. So, this creature sounds like it was intelligent, folks, but really, was it? We've often talked about how these creatures will look at the witnesses who see them. Sometimes they run off, sometimes they growl, and a lot of times, folks, we have to wonder, are these creatures actually thinking? Basically, speculating and wondering about the creatures that are witnessing them, or maybe coming up with a plan on how to attack them, or maybe even get out of the area as safely as possible, folks. This creature, though, was looking at the witnesses, and we can only speculate if this thing was basically far more intelligent than some animal, because I get that feeling from the description here. But let's continue. My friend and I remained in stunned silence for a few moments. Once the creature was no longer in view, I turned to my friend and asked what we had just seen. His exact words were, "We just saw a effing werewolf." I agreed that this assessment was accurate. I asked if he would turn the car around, but he absolutely refused to do so. We spent the rest of the trip debating whether it could have been a dog or an escaped pet wolf, but honestly, it just didn't look like either. Both my friend and I are experienced outdoorsmen, and neither of us have or has ever seen anything that fits this description before. I was raised not far from the area and know it quite well. I have spoken to my friend about this incident, and neither of us would be willing to take a polygraph concerning it. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have. Thank you, Jay. Jay's story is very intriguing, folks. It's yet another story in which the witness sees either a dogman or a Bigfoot standing alongside the road. The fact that both cryptids are known in a lot of science for basically just doing that is very, very interesting, folks. We have to ask, Is it because they find roads somewhat interesting? Maybe because they see cars passing them all the time, and this is why these people witness these entities there, perhaps? We don't know. Now, though, folks, let's get into the note that came with this article. I had the opportunity to speak with both witnesses. Each mentioned an interesting detail. This creature had a silvery aura around it. That's a unique characteristic and may be an essential part. This sighting in particular has raised my concerns a bit because it suggests that there may be a supernatural aspect associated with this being as well. I have to say I agree with that, folks. It has always basically struck me that encounters with, cryptids occasionally do have supernatural elements to them, like Bigfoot and the Dogman here. They really speak of that. But is it true, folks? Well, until someone can actually catch one of these creatures, and the fact that maybe the reason why we've never been able to catch these creatures is due to this supernatural element. That might explain so much. But either way, folks, let's move on to the next article. Point Pleasant, West Virginia Mothman, mysterious goggle-wearing runner, shapeshifts into flying silver-suited humanoid. Let's get into this article and hear exactly, this particular case of the Mothman showing the ability to shapeshift. So maybe Mothman has more supernatural elements than anyone has actually guessed at. November 1967, near Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a family witnessed two bizarre figures. First, a goggle-eyed runner keeping pace with their car at 35 miles per hour. Then, a winged, silver-suited humanoid launching into the sky with glowing red eyes. Were these two strange beings connected to the Mothman legend, or part of something even more unusual that unfolded along the Ohio River? Indeed, folks, is there a connection? We'll discuss that after we read this article, and along with the first article, folks, we'll discuss the real meaning of these cryptids and the strange supernatural powers that some of them seem to possess. Now, let's get into the story itself. One chilly day in November of 1967, my parents decided to attend a private event in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. We were driving southbound along the highway by the Ohio River on the West Virginia side. It was a long ride, and my butt was starting to go numb. To shift around, I glanced out the window and caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. So that's interesting, folks. Our witness was uncomfortable on the long ride to where they were going and was shifting around before he actually noticed this creature. He was actually feeling something, folks. Now, it's been said that sometimes these instances happen because the witness is feeling either uncomfortable or scared. So maybe that is something to consider in this particular story as well, folks. Do you think the fact that he was uncomfortable somehow attracted this cryptid to him, perhaps? Let's read on, and then we can discuss it a little more. On the right side of the road, in a thin stretch of woods between the highway and the river, there was a figure I initially thought was a hobo or a homeless man. He was wearing a brown flannel shirt, grubby, baggy brown pants, and a brown hunting hat with ear flaps down. Strangely, he was running alongside our car. I checked the speedometer. We were moving at 35 miles per hour. I kept looking at him as he kept pace with us until he turned and looked directly at me. It appeared he was wearing old-fashioned welding goggles or motorcycle goggles. They had brown frames and bright red lenses. He maintained his speed for several hundred yards until a wide bend in the road separated us, and I lost sight of him. Just a couple seconds later, my brothers started yelling, "Look, the man, he's flying. That guy is flying." This was a different figure. He was dressed in a silver suit with wings and had his arms lifted near his chest. I couldn't understand how he was controlling his flight. He shot straight up out of the woods, leveled out, and headed east. His eyes were glowing a bright red, unlike those of the runner. He eventually flew behind a hill, and that was the last we saw of him. Jay. Okay, folks. Jay's story, like with basically our last witness here, both stories are incredibly bizarre, and these entities show odd attributes that we don't really see in basically similar cases with both Dogman and Mothman. In this case, folks, the Mothman seemingly, that is, if this was the same figure, folks, transformed from a weird man in some, basically odd clothing into this bizarre figure straight out of a sci-fi movie with this silver suit and these, flying wings that allowed him to basically go off into the air. While with the Dogman encounter, this entity was seen glowing a very weird silvery color that was basically erupting out of its body, like basically, literally, as if it were achieving some sort of holy aura or something. Either way, both accounts are certainly strange. But folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions of the chat to go subscribe to me. Either way, I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me today, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so make sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.